better that we can align our unique gifts and talents towards something greater than ourselves that align with our values, the better and more fulfilled we will be. Alright, now I'm not saying that I cracked the code, but I have figured out a few really awesome things just to help me feel more fulfilled in my life. It wasn't just about 2 to 3 years ago where I was feeling like the complete opposite of fulfilled. I just felt lost, confused, and really no matter what I did, I just didn't really feel good. And I didn't know why, and I didn't know what to do. And over the past 2 or 3 years, I've spent a lot of time in self-discovery to figure these things out and to find what was gonna have me not only feeling my best, but performing my best and feeling the most fulfilled and feeling like that I'm living up to my full potential every single day. So in this video, I'm gonna give you my top 5 tips to help you guys feel more fulfilled on a daily basis. So the first and one of the biggest tips that I can give you guys that's gonna help you live a more fulfilling life is just by knowing and connecting with our strengths on a consistent, almost daily basis. Not knowing what our individual strengths are is much like a construction worker going up to a job site without knowing the tools that he has, or even knowing the tools that it takes to get the job done. So the more that we are able to just stop and reflect and to know what our unique abilities are, the more that we are able to use those abilities towards contributing, and that's what's gonna make us feel at our best. Now, unfortunately, most of us don't know or really take the time out of our day to connect with our strengths. And one of the best ways that I can recommend doing this is just every morning when we wake up and every night before we go to bed, take a few moments and just think about your strengths. What are you innately good at? What does it seem that you've been just naturally good at since the beginning? And sometimes it's not going to come up right away because we're just so far disconnected with that. So take a few moments with that every single morning and every single evening. Even when you feel like you really are connected and know your strengths, keep looking and keep discovering what more strengths you have. Because we all have so many unique abilities and talents that are within us that we just have to connect to be able to use. And if you have a really hard time discovering what your strengths are, I really recommend taking the time just with yourself. Put up your phone, turn off the TV, find a room that is alone and quiet, and just sit. Sit and connect with your breath. The more that we are able to connect with our breath, the more that we are going to be able to connect with ourselves, and that's what's going to help us connect with our unique gifts and talents so we know what we can work on a daily basis. So the second biggest tip, which is extremely important, is after we know what a few of our biggest strengths are, we must take the time out almost on a daily basis to learn how to evolve these strengths, of how to improve upon these strengths. Because nobody is just going to be born being the greatest. But the more that we can connect with our innate gifts and talents, taking those talents and evolving them, growing them, and making them better every single day, the more happier and fulfilled we're going to be. So the third biggest tip is knowing what our values are. So what is really important to you? At the end of the day, what really matters? And I'm not talking about values as in like patience and honesty. We all know that those are great. But I'm talking about individually to you, what is truly, truly important. And I highly recommend grabbing a sketchbook or a notebook and writing out these things on a piece of paper. Writing tends to be the purest form of thinking because we have to complete our thoughts. And this is something that I do almost on a weekly or monthly basis of just rewriting my values or what is truly important to me. And the more that we are able to connect with our gifts, connect with our strengths, and align that with our values, the more fulfilled and happier we are going to be, because that's what's going to help us perform at our best. And that's what's going to help us align our truest, highest self towards our biggest purpose. It can be really challenging to truly know what our biggest purpose is if we're, one, not connected with our strengths, and two, we don't know our truest, deepest values. So take some time alone, reflecting, connecting with your breath, and I promise you, you'll be more connected with your strengths and your values. So the fourth tip is going to take a little bit of thought and a little bit of planning as well. So now one of the biggest tips to make sure that we're living a life as fulfilled as it possibly can be is we have to stop and reflect and think, how can we use our unique gifts and talents and align that with our biggest, deepest values, and how can we use those things to contribute to something that's bigger than ourselves? And if you spend the time with yourself and reflecting, these answers will come up, but it just takes time and connection and alignment with all of these things together. And the more that we are able to align our gifts with our values, the more we're going to be able to know and have the best ideas of how we can contribute to not only our world, but even the closest people to us. And the more that we are able to use these unique gifts and talents towards helping others, the more fulfilled we're going to be. Every single person on this planet wants to feel loved and valued. And that is one of our innate necessities that we need to live a happy, more fulfilled life. So if we want to feel loved and valued, we have to bring value to other people. And we're going to be able to bring the most value to other people if we're connected with our strengths and if we know our values. Because that's what's going to have our whole mind, body, and soul firing on all cylinders. Now, the fifth tip that comes with practice is learning how to trust your gut. I remember a few years ago when I was not living a fulfilled life in any way, all these feelings that were coming up, I just tried to block them as best as I can. Say, no, shut up self, you're tougher than that. And it ended up bringing me to my lowest point of just not listening to my highest self speak, or not listening to my gut. And it takes practice to understand the language of yourself, and that comes from sitting with yourself in the meditation or just connecting with your breath. But learning how to trust your gut is going to give you all of the different signs that's going to help you stay aligned with your values and with your talents. Most of the time, if we're feeling some feeling of anger or emotional pain, one or many of our values are being abused. It's a good indicator of that. The times where we're just feeling high on life and absolutely fulfilled and great, that usually means that we're aligned with one or many of our values. And the times where we just feel demoralized or just nothing feels important might mean that some of our values are being ignored. So trust your gut and listen to yourself. And the more that you listen to yourself, the more that you'll kind of understand the language and being able to connect with yourself. And use these feelings as almost guides to help you keep aligning with your biggest, highest purpose. One of my biggest intentions in everything that I do is taking everything that I learned and using my specific innate gifts and talents towards contributing to other people and hopefully to help other people on a similar path. And that's really what I'm doing with all of this is my way of trying to live my most fulfilled life. And it took me a long time to discover this, and it took me a long time to learn these things because I was at a point where I wasn't feeling good and I knew something had to change. And that's when, one, I just started breathing. I started meditating. I started connecting with myself. I was at a point so low where I had pains all over my body and I was really stuck in my house for almost a year just healing from pains. And I was so physically hurt that I was struggling with so many mental aspects as well, struggling with anxiety or depression, just living a really unfulfilled life. And that's when I was forced to just sit with myself and breathe deep. And the more that I was breathing and connecting with my breath, the more I started connecting myself with my innate gifts and talents, my biggest strengths. So I really hope that this video inspires you to stop and think about what your strengths are. The more that you can connect with your strengths, the more effective you will be throughout your life. Because we all have these superpowers, these tools that if we can connect with, that's what's going to have us performing at our best. And we must use our gifts to align with our values. What is truly important to you? I highly recommend grabbing out a notebook or a sketchbook and writing out these things. Sometimes it might take every single day, asking yourself, what am I good at? What are my strengths? And then how can I use these strengths to help other people? And that's going to come with, again, knowing our values. Alright guys, thank you so much for watching. I really hope this video helped in some way. I'd love to hear what you think in the comments below, and if you have any questions about anything, just leave those in the comments below and I'll do my best to answer them. I'm actually in the middle of working on the biggest project of my life, where I'm taking everything that I've learned throughout my life and put it into this 6-week course that should be releasing March 3rd on my website at www.thewillgrant.com. And this is my way of taking all my unique gifts and talents and my values and how I can contribute to the world and contribute to other people. So I really hope that you guys enjoy that and check it out and let me know what you think. And again, if you haven't yet already, make sure to give this video a big old thumbs up and think about subscribing, because I'm coming out with new videos every single week.